Let's talk about order of operations. And this may be one of the most important things for you to understand in this class here. So, order, and let me see if I can get this to focus. Okay, order of operations. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you like 4 basic order of operations. And you maybe have learned these with a mnemonic, like something like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And those are okay, but you still have to understand what's going on with the order of operations, because the mnemonic by itself can kind of mess you up. And I'll explain why here in a minute. So the first operation is you do whatever is in parentheses first. Okay. So you do what's in parentheses first. Should that be an E? I don't know. Whatever. You do what's in parentheses first. In fact, oftentimes we call those grouping symbols, and they're there to group together something that we want the person to do first, even though they wouldn't normally do it first. I'll explain that in a moment. Okay? The second thing here is exponents. And the third thing is you're going to multiply and divide together from left to right. So you do those two together from left to right. And then finally, you're going to add and subtract together from, and don't ask me why I did add and then I should have put a negative sign there. I don't know why I did that, but add and subtract together from left to right. Okay, so the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally comes from the first letter here, P in parentheses. Please excuse, the E in exponent. My multiplication, M. My division is D, that's dear. And then addition is A, Aunt, and then Sally. Subtraction starts with S. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And that's okay, I guess, if that helps you memorize this. But the danger of that is that, for example, addition and subtraction, they should be done together from left to right. So it's not Aunt Sally. It's not addition and then subtraction. So let me give you an example here. Let's say I have 15 minus 7 plus 3. If you're thinking, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and you're thinking, oh, addition and subtraction, right? And I should do addition first and then subtraction second because it's Aunt Sally, you're going to get this wrong. You shouldn't add these and get 10 and then take 15 minus 10 and get 5. That'll give you the wrong answer. Okay? So what you need to do is you need to add and subtract together from left to right. That's the order there, okay? Add and subtract together from left to right. So I start with 15, subtract 7, get 8, add 3 and get 11. And so that would be the right number there, okay? So let's try maybe another one. Let's say I have 2 times 5 squared. Okay. And so let's see. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the order of operations. We got a multiplication, we got an exponent. Which one do we do first? Well, you're going to do the exponent first. So the exponent means take 5 times 5. So that would be 2 times 25. Okay, and then what you're going to do is the multiplication, and that gives you 2 times 25 is 50. So that would be the right answer. Okay, so it's not that you're going to take 2, multiply by 5, square that. Okay, you do exponents before multiplication because it's on this level. So it's parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. Okay, so now let's say what you wanted here is you wanted the person to add first, right, and then subtract. That's where parentheses come in. So if I want them to add first, I have to tell them 15 minus, and the way I tell them to do it first is I use a parentheses. Okay, so now this would be 15 minus 10, and then I would get 5. Okay, and that would be the answer there. Okay, similarly, let's say I did want them to multiply before squaring. Well, then I need to have a parentheses that says to take 2 times 5 and then square it. And now I do what's in parentheses first, 10, and then when I square it, I get 10 squared is 100, and I get a different answer. So the parentheses is there to tell the person to do something first when you normally wouldn't do it first. So if I wanted them to multiply before square, exponents come first here, right? So I'm going to put a parentheses to say do that first and then square. Or here, normally you're going to add and subtract from left to right. So you're going to take 15 and then you're going to subtract first and then add 3. But if what I wanted you to do was add these first before subtracting from 15, I have to tell you with the parentheses like that. Okay? So now, let me just try a couple others. A very common calculation here would be something like this. A very common calculation is called the z-score, finding the z-score of a number. Okay, and the formula actually looks like this. Okay, and you don't know what these are, but this is an x value, this is the mean, and this is the standard deviation. So let's say x was equal to, we'll say 27. And we'll say the mean was equal to 35. And we'll say the standard deviation was equal to 7. Let's just say those were the values. This is a formula where I would want to convert this x, the 27, into the z-score. And you don't know what that means yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these numbers into the formula. Okay, so 27 in for x, the 35 in for the u, and the 7 in for this symbol down here. This isn't u, that's actually mu in the Greek alphabet. This is sigma in the Greek alphabet, a lowercase s. This is a lowercase m and a lowercase s. So this would be 7. Okay, so now this is like 27 minus 35 divided by 7. Okay, so this is like the fraction bar can be thought of as a division sign. Okay, so if I'm going to do this calculation to divide by 7, I would use the division. Okay, so I'd do like 27 minus 35 divided by 7. Okay, but if I put it in my calculator like this, I'm actually going to get the wrong answer. Okay, and let me explain why. So when you have a fraction like this, what you're going to do is you're going to do everything on top and then everything on bottom, and then the very final thing, you're going to take the top and and divide it by the bottom. So there's kind of like an implicit grouping symbol around the top and one around the bottom. And you do all the stuff on the top, all the stuff on the bottom, and then finally divide the two. So 27 minus 35, that would equal negative 8, and then divide that by 7. So it's like negative 8 divided by 7. And then I would use my calculator to find that. Okay, well, if I typed it in like this, 27 minus 35 divided by 7, the calculator, and this is very important, the calculator knows the order of operations. And so the calculator knows to divide before it subtracts. Okay, so what it's going to do is take 35 divided by 7 first, and it would get 5, and then it's going to take 27 minus 5, and that's going to be 22. Okay, and that's not the same as this. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to tell the calculator to subtract first. So I have to use a parentheses, and then I divide that by 7. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm telling the calculator, I know the calculator is normally going to divide before it subtracts. So if I just do 27 minus 35 divided by 7, it'll do the division before it subtracts. So I have to make sure I have to use parentheses to say, okay, subtract this first before you divide. And then I get the right answer. And this is a negative z-score. And that's okay. Z-scores can be positive or negative. And what we're going to do is we're going to round z-scores to the hundredths place. So I'm going to round it to 2 decimal places here. So this 4 is going to get rounded down because that number to the right of it is 2. So I'm actually going to say this is approximately negative 1.14. This would be the z-score to 2 decimal places. Okay. So it's important. You need to realize the calculator knows the order of operations. Okay, so it is going to do the order of operations. And if the way you have it typed in isn't what you want it to do, so if you do 27 minus 35 divided by 7, it is going to do the order of operations. And so it'll divide before it subtracts. So I would have to tell it to subtract first. And I would do that by putting parentheses around the 27 minus 35. Okay. Another way you could do this is you could do 27 minus 35 and you could hit equals, and there I get the negative 8. And then when I hit the divide sign, it'll say answer divided by 7. And so this is going to take whatever's in the answer line and divide that by 7. And there I get the right answer. So that's really important. Okay. So let me show you something else. Let's do another thing, maybe a little more complicated. So I'm going to do, I'll have like x minus, let's say y over z divided by the square root of b minus a. Okay, so I need to put in some numbers here. So let's say x is 25, y is 10, z is equal to 15. We'll say a is equal to 3, and b is equal to 12. Okay, so let's place all this in and then calculate it. Okay, so now I'm going to have place 25 in for x minus, and then y will be 10 over 15, all divided by the square root of 12 minus 3. Okay, now let's figure, I'm going to type this in my calculator. Okay, so this top portion is going to all need to be in parentheses, because then I'm going to divide it by the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to do 25 minus 10 divided by 15, and then end the parentheses. Okay, now this is okay because here I want it to divide before it's going to subtract, right? So it's okay to have it like this. It will divide first and then it'll subtract, but I need to make sure it does all of that first before it divides by the bottom. Okay, so I do need a parentheses around the whole thing. And now I'm going to divide this by the bottom. Now the square root here goes over the whole thing. Okay, so if I just do the square root of 12 minus 3, on this calculator, it's going to take just the square root of 12. So in other words, usually if the calculator doesn't extend, sometimes it'll extend this out with whatever. So you would write 12 minus 3, but this bar here would get extended out over the whole thing. And if that bar gets extended out over the whole thing, like I have it here, you would get the right answer. But if it doesn't, like in this calculator, then what I got to do is I got to make sure that it does this subtraction before it takes the square root. So I need to put the 12 minus 3 in parentheses first. So then, or in parentheses, so then it actually subtracts first and then takes the square root. In this case, it actually comes out real nice because I got the square root of 9, which is just 3 on the bottom. Okay, so let's see what I get when I put in all of this. And it is equal to 8.111 repeating. So let's round it to the nearest hundredths place. And so that would just be, I have to change this to approximately 8.11. Okay, and so that's just another example of order of operations, and not just the order of operations, but being able to plug numbers into formulas and being able to put the formula correctly into the calculator. That is the most important skill in the class. If you don't get that down, you're really going to struggle in the class. So the thing you have to know is you need to know what the order of operations is, and then you need to understand that the calculator is going to follow that order of operations. And so if you have to put in a parenthesis somewhere to tell it to do something first when you should do it first, then you need that parenthesis there. You don't always need parentheses. Sometimes if you put a parenthesis where it doesn't belong, you could get the wrong answer. So you need to understand what the order of operations is. You need to understand that the calculator will follow that order of operations. And so you need to input it in the calculator correctly to get the right answer.